Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome back to the channel where today I am going to be reviewing Dead Man's Blues, which is the second book in the City Blues Quartet by British author Ray Celestin. I already reviewed the first book about last year, thereabout, Axeman's Jazz, and the way things are going, I think I'm going to continue with this quartet and pick up the next books possibly next year. Brief summary plot here. I'm going to try to do this review as spoiler-free as possible. The book picks up a few years after the events of the first book. We still follow Louis Armstrong as his musical career progresses, where he's moved from New Orleans up to Chicago. Our two private investigators from book one, Michael Talbot and Ida Davis, have also moved to Chicago, and they still work for the Pinkerton Detective Agency there. So what happens is we have multiple plot threads that eventually converge, and whether that's done successfully or not, I still haven't quite made up my mind. So, few things. On the one hand, we've got Louis Armstrong. He's in Chicago after a brief stint in New York, where he's back there and his musical career is taking over, and he's starting to lead his own jazz band. Like I said, Ida and Michael are working for the Pinkerton Detective Agency, and they are hired by a rich society lady to investigate the whereabouts of her missing daughter. There's another investigation going on where we have Jacob Russo, who is a crime scene photographer who is following on the murder of a crime gangster because he doesn't quite agree with the official line of inquiry, so he picks up the investigation by himself. And finally, we have Dante Sanfilippo, who is a New York gangster fixer who comes to Chicago at the behest of Al Capone, who rules the city, to investigate a poisoning and a potential traitor inside Capone's crime family. Now, this book was fun. This book was the most fun I've had reading so far this year. It is a fairly classic hard-boiled thriller crime book. It's very well written. The characters are likable, even your gangsters, even your very suspect characters are enjoyable. Maybe if they're not likable, they are enjoyable. And the pace moves on quite well. There's also a fair amount of social commentary in the book. We are in Prohibition era, so we're dealing with that. We're dealing with all the gangsters. We're dealing with Al Capone and the political situation and machinations and how he had the city in his pocket, basically. We follow the mass migration of black people from the southern states to the northern states at the time. We follow the evolution of music, and there's a fair amount of historical setting there, including the Jack Dempsey versus George Tooney boxing fight, infamous for its long count. Although admittedly some of the events have been twisted in. So Celestin isn't adhering strictly to the actual timeline. He does twist it a little bit to fit events, but he is aware of it. He does mention it in the afterword. I just wish it had been possible to respect the timeline. I've got this love-hate relationship with Tim Powers, but he's an author that writes historical fiction, but he's super strict, 100% adhering to respecting the timeline. Celestin doesn't do so here, and it does move some things around for greater effect. Depends on how forgiving you are about those things. In fairness, I think at times I got a little bit lost as to how everything was going to come together and who was who, but I read the book fairly quickly. And my only slight criticism perhaps is that there's a particular point where the final connection to make all the pieces click together seems a bit serendipitous. So literally someone stops at a roadside bar and then sees something that it just triggers a cascade of events, and I don't know, maybe I missed something. Maybe it really is that case of lucky coincidence or very convenient coincidence. So I think that detracted a little bit from the book, but it was, like I said, a very, very enjoyable read. It was nominated for some Crime Writer Association's Gold Dagger Award, and I think it's certainly a step up from the first book, Axeman's Jazz, which was okay. This was better. Like I said, definitely looking forward to picking up book 3, maybe at some point next year, and book 4 depends on how excited I get. I might finish it next year or not. But anyway, this is what I have for today. Thank you as usual ever so much for watching. If you haven't done so, like, subscribe, comment, let me know what you think. Take loads and loads of care, and I'll see you soon. Bye.